Hi guys, in another episode of I'm Not Racist, but a guy was interviewed on the street following Nigel Farage's plan to deport 600,000 people, set up a processing centre on the other side of the world, and send people back to countries irrespective of if they're safe or not. But this guy's reaction to all of this demonstrates that so many people's minds have been poisoned by politicians and their lies. Have a listen.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not racist. But how many people have we got on the streets here as own people queuing up at food banks and that, and they're coming over in a dinghy?
Does anyone honestly believe that if the dinghies stopped tomorrow, that if some way Nigel Farage as Prime Minister or even Keir Starmer as Prime Minister was able to stop the boats immediately, does anyone honestly believe that the number of food banks would decline? That food banks would disappear as well? Of course they wouldn't. Because the food banks are a political problem, not an economic problem. We could end poverty tomorrow if politicians wanted to, but they don't want to. And it shows how Nigel Farage and the far right are able to connect these two things. Oh, look at all these people coming over in dinghies, and at the same time British people have to queue outside food banks, not realising the reality of the situation. 20 years ago, food banks didn't really exist. I think there were something like less than 10 in 2007 or 2008. And then what happened? There was the financial crisis. And the banks were propped up, but ordinary people were not. And many people lost their homes or were kicked out of their homes. People lost savings. People lost a lot of money. A lot of people were pushed into destitution as well. And then what happened? The Conservatives got into power. And what did the Conservatives do? They implemented a regime of austerity. The government is too big, public services are too expensive, the welfare state needs to be cut. And they made the situation worse. And then what did you see? You saw an explosion of food banks long before the small boats began. And it became worse and worse, and it's at record levels now. Now, only people on the far right are able to convince people that the food banks are in some way linked to asylum seekers. And somehow if you stop the boats, then you would also stop the food banks. The food banks are a political problem, not an economic one. The government could end poverty tomorrow if it wanted, but it's a political decision not to. Food banks should not exist. I've said on so many occasions, food banks are a demonstration of government failure. Governments are supposed to protect citizens, supposed to make sure that they have a decent quality of living. Nobody should be going to a food bank. Food banks should not exist. It's a demonstration, once again, that government has failed. Government is supposed to provide a safety net for people so that they don't fall into destitution. But that safety net has massive holes in it. It's been torn apart by the Conservatives, and hopefully Labour is going to repair it. But what we're seeing so far is very little. So you're going to see people queuing on and relying on queuing at food banks and relying on support. Even asylum seekers who aren't getting enough money are queuing at food banks. In some cases, asylum seekers are being sent to food banks because the ones who don't receive support directly from the Home Office. Once again, we have this situation where the right wing, including Nigel Farage, are able to convince people your problems are not because of people like me, not because of my donors, not because of the richest people in society, not because of corruption, not because of a transfer of wealth to the richest in society, not because of that. It's because of that guy on that boat. The guy on the boat who has literally nothing apart from the clothes on his back. That guy is your problem, not me, not the corruption, not the transfer of wealth over the last 20 odd years to the richest in society. I really wish somebody would ask people, for example, when they're interviewing on the street, when they talk about, well, look at the asylum seeker getting everything and British people get nothing. When did that begin? When did the food banks begin? Was it before or after the dinghies? Was it before or after the immigrants came? Because the right wing wants you to blame And convenient politicians want you to blame the people who have no power. They don't want you to look up. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. I'll see you in the next video.